Well, good evening once again. It's Monday night. It's 8 p.m. and it's time for the Monday Review Show. This is where we discuss all things referees and refereeing and incidents that took place in the past weekend and maybe some before. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, you can do so. Just click on the bottom right-hand side of your screen and you can send in your question there, or you can make your comment. Delighted to have you on board again. And I'm also delighted to have on board our regular guest, former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former head of the PGMOL. For those of you who don't know by now what that means, PGMOL stands for Professional Games Match Officials Limited. And those are the guys who effectively look after referees in the Premier League and the Championship and also make the appointments. Keith Hackett, thanks very much again for joining. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, just to let you guys know out there that just having a few technical problems where there's a bit of a delay on the picture or a bit of delay on the voices as well. So hope you can bear with us on that. Now, last week was a very interesting weekend for football, but particularly the whole issue around referees being threatened, and I mean death threats. We remember, oh goodness, can't think of his name now, the Swedish guy, blonde guy, some years ago, who retired and resigned, if you like, after receiving threats from then Chelsea supporters. I think that was around 2006. Can't think of his name just off the top of my head. Yeah. But recently with Michael Oliver, he was also threatened and got death threats, and they're not nice. It's happened to us all. I'm sure it's happened to Keith. It's happened to me many times during my time in South Africa, and it's not nice. No. Did you have any of those experiences, Keith, yourself?
I did many years ago in a semi-final. I sent off West Ham Tony Gale for denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. The reality of that decision was that the media and players, and I think just about everybody in the game, was not aware of the Football Association England instruction to referees on the Thursday before that game of the change in interpretation of denial. What had happened was that in England, we had almost highlighted the challenge to be cynical. And that's when we penalised. And so there were challenges in that season up to the semi-final where players weren't sent off, even though when they switched the criteria to the days before my game, where they actually said, look, why are you guys not sending players off when the foul can be a small foul? If it meets the criteria, you don't have to look at the word cynical. That's not in the remit and not in the law. So we changed from a situation where a number of offences had gone unpunished, and I've got an FA Cup semi-final beamed around the world when all of a sudden the player goes down and I'm left with little alternative other than to send the player off. The reality of that was, unfortunately, a red card and then a number of death threats.
Yeah. Again, the picture's freezing for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. If it's on my side or your side. Yeah, and I've been subject to many death threats as well. I've been taken out of stadiums in South Africa in the boot of a car. One time in an army armored car. And another incident, I had a guy phone my office on a Thursday and tell me I'd get a bullet in my face if his team didn't win on the following Sunday. I had a bullet left in my hotel room in Bloemfontein when I went down to do a relegation match. And so we've been through that and, you know, all that sort of thing. Unfortunately, it's part of the game. It shouldn't be. But certainly in South Africa, anyway, the Premier League referee security was absolutely top notch. They were absolutely fantastic guys. And I have no doubt saved me on many an occasion, and I mightn't even be here today, but for those guys. But it shouldn't happen, but it does.
Yes.
These are unfortunately hotheads, probably not great supporters of any team, or let alone the game of football, and they just decide to let loose and vent their anger. And you know, we do remember that. I'm still trying to remember his name, the Swedish referee who resigned in 2006 after threats from it was said at the time Chelsea fans. So, but it's always there. I'm delighted to see that it hasn't affected Michael Oliver in any way.
No.
He had a good game during the week, a European match, and then he had a good game on the weekend as well. But it's there. Can it be eradicated, Keith? How do we get rid of it?
Well, I remember many years ago, I was running the line for the great Jack Taylor at Leeds versus Arsenal. And in the lead up to the game, we were chatting, and he said, "I've got a little bit of advice for you, son. Don't read the Sunday papers, and don't read the Monday papers either. Because whatever you think, you'll look at those papers and you'll come away at some point very, very disappointed." So I know this is a difficult thing to say, but I think if I was managing the Premier League referees at this moment in time, I would suggest to them, don't even read or get involved with social media. Switch it off, blank it off, and just concentrate on your games. We will tell you, the PGMOL, through our performance analysis system, how you are refereeing. Now, that is very difficult because the referees in England, as in many instances across the world, are now public figures. Michael Oliver is instantly recognisable, as others are, on the list. So it's not easy when you're crisscrossing the country or the world. I mean, you mentioned Michael Oliver. Michael Oliver was certainly wrong in his decision. Let's be quite clear. It wasn't serious foul play. He made a judgment. He wasn't supported by the VAR. And the consequence of that was he got the support of the PGMOL with their statements saying this was serious foul play. And of course, the player went to appeal and he got off. So it wasn't serious foul play. It was an error. Referees are human. Referees out there that watch our show will make errors. We all make them. What you've got to do on the day is park them during the game, forget it, and just get on with the rest of the game. And then afterwards, in your self-analysis, look at that incident in more detail, but also look at it in the area of where were you positioned? You know, did you get the viewing angle? Was it blocked? And did you think that that you were wrong in the first place? And often you'll find that your judgment is accurate. You don't make as many mistakes as you probably think you do.
So, Keith, is there a need then to change or alter or amend Law 5 that clearly states, and I'm paraphrasing now, the ref's decision is final?
Of course there is.
When somebody can come along on a Monday and rescind a red card. Was it even downgraded to a yellow?
No, they can't do that. This was a red card, totally rescinded, and the player didn't get his 3-match ban, which I have to say was the correct decision. But you're quite right. The whole process, even at international level, it is the wording in the law that says the referee's decision is final. Let me tell you, it is not. Simply because the governing bodies, and look, it's the Football Association's regulatory panel that review these decisions and overturn what the referee has done on the day. And they can't interfere with yellow cards, but they can interfere and, of course, overturn red cards. And I think to some degree, I'm not too unhappy with that. I think that if that rectifies an error that would have seen a player wrongly suspended, I think in the interest of good sportsmanship, that's the right thing to do. But you're right. Let's change the law to say the majority of decisions are with the referee and the rest are with committee XYZ, the VAR, and a fan in row 7 at such and such a stadium. I mean,
yeah.
I know I'm jesting, but
No, sure.
the reality is that I think that over the time that Mike Riley has been in charge, and now it's Mike Howard-Webb, I think the real decline in standard of officiating is because these guys are seeing those teams too frequently. That's one. I think that fans and social media now impacts on everything. Look, Peter Banks officiated at the weekend's big game involving Arsenal and Manchester City. It was a huge game. And he happens to come from Liverpool. So before that game even started, people from both sides were questioning his integrity. Why have we got a guy from Liverpool influencing a game when we're at top of the league? Now, I have to say, in my era, that wouldn't have happened. But all the referees, 56 referees that were on the list before the Premier League, could referee. I used to referee, Division 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so you might only see, rarely did you see a team more than once. And when you look back at last season, Michael Oliver refereed Liverpool 7 times in the season and Tottenham 7 times in the season. That, for me, is too big an exposure. In the same way that I don't think, and I'm not questioning the referee's integrity because he's done remarkably well in games, but you have Anthony Taylor, who lives at Altrincham, which is Greater Manchester, refereeing Manchester United and Manchester City, and it now seems to be the accepted norm. But the danger here, and I keep saying it and it's not happened, is it creates a massive error. Said Old Trafford, his kids go to school with Manchester United fans. He lives in that area. And I think it's very difficult to get away. And I'm sorry I'm using Anthony Taylor as an example.
No.
But I think I don't think referees should be exposed to that. In my era, because I was a Yorkshireman based in Sheffield, I think throughout my career, 23 years on the list, I refereed Leeds United twice in 23 years because they said, look, you're a Yorkshire, you're Yorkshire born and bred, and they're a Yorkshire club. Middlesbrough, although it was in a sense Yorkshire, Teesside, I got there more frequently. So I think that side of it doesn't help, but there's no doubts that Michael did make an error. I hope he's learned from that. But this is the nature of the guy. He comes back and says, I'm going to show everybody that you're all wrong, including you, Mr. Hackett, for being critical of my decision. And I've parked that and I'm going to have a great game at Barcelona, which he did.
It shouldn't make any difference, Keith, where a referee is from. He's there. He's supposed to be fair, impartial, unbiased. So why should it make any difference where he comes from? Or is it just a perception that people?
Well, I think it's perception. I think, I think that we build on a history, and I come from, the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where that just wouldn't happen. You'd have mistakes, but you wouldn't have a referee. For example, if I'm from Sheffield, and if Liverpool and Manchester City were going for the title, and Sheffield Wednesday were in that same situation, going for the title, then I would not be appointed to Liverpool, Manchester City, obviously Sheffield Wednesday's out because I live in Sheffield, but that would have been the case. It's changed now. And you're right. You never, the balance always is the other way. You know, I would suggest that if there was a 50-50 decision, you're not going to put your integrity in question.
Yeah.
And maybe there might be a mental bias within our psyche that says, I'm giving that to this particular team because I might be seen to be biased towards it. And I think those sort of things are for people like sports psychologists in the past and in the future.
Okay, interesting incident in Holland. 12 players on the field. How can that happen in today's modern game that you can have 12 players on the pitch?
Well, I mean, I just find it absolutely incredible that this should happen.
This was a top league game, your Premier League or whatever, First Division, whatever they have there.
Yeah, I mean, the scenario is that as a referee, and I keep saying it, at the very elite level, you are an event manager. Even at grassroots level, you're managing more than a game. And part of that game is that your administration is absolutely spot on. Now we can get into an old description and if you like, discussion around the submission of a referee's report, disciplinary report, that contains XYZ information and how that needs to be accurate. But I think that when you've got a game now with multi-substitutions, where somebody might just suddenly walk off the pitch out of your vision, this is the whole aspect of you've got a fourth official, you've got two assistant referees, and you've just got to be aware of that can happen, and you've really got to be up to speed, and certainly not going to be in a position where you're going to get caught out.
Yeah. How did it happen? I know we're very strict on not allowing a sub on until the player being subbed has actually left the field of play, because he could be the player leaving the field could be a yard from the touchline, but commits a red card offence, and in that case then he gets a red card and the sub is not allowed on. But so how did this happen? Have you any idea?
Well, I can only assume that there's been a multi-substitution, and the process that should have been applied, that you just eloquently explained, has gone astray, or there's a player gone off injured, and the team's decided to replace him, and he's come back on the field at the other end of the pitch. So I think they got it, but it shouldn't happen. I was told this morning, and I haven't checked, and I should have checked, that apparently in a game in England, the VAR this weekend intervened, stopped the game, had the game stopped in order to count the number of players. So that was in an English Premier League game, and I'm desperately trying to find it to tell you which game it was. I think it might have been one where Andy Madley was the referee, but I'm not going to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, just a minute. This was it.
So there were 12 people on the field.
Yeah, there was a weird delay when VAR intervened because they didn't realise Guedes had already gone off. So they thought Wolves would end up with too many players. So VAR intervened because they hadn't seen a player go off.
Right. Okay.
So that happened.
That's at least they're on the ball. They're keeping an eye on it, which is good. Unlike what happened. So just briefly, Keith, just run us through for the benefit of people watching, what happens if it's discovered that there are 12 people on the field.
Well, you immediately stop the game. That's the important bit, and get the numbers right. Now, when we're discussing these things, we have a lot of grassroots referees that watch the game.
Yes. Yeah.
Watch our programs. So first of all, my advice to them is that they must look at the competition rules regarding numbers of players and substitutions. They need to make certain that is the case. We obviously are aware of the goalkeeper in that situation, because this all comes into what is a fairly law 3 is where people should look and look at players.
Yeah.
But the one thing I think is this: if after a goal is scored, the referee realizes before play restarts that an extra player was on the field of play when the goal was scored, and that person interfered with play, the referee must disallow the goal if the extra person was a player, a substituted player, a sent-off player, or a team official.
Okay, so just let me stop you there, Keith. Can I just stop you there, please? So it's only if that player, the extra player, the 12th player, interfered with the play. He hadn't interfered with the play, you still allow the goal and have him removed.
Yeah. You can talk about, and you quite rightly raised it early, about an outside agent who interfered with play, unless a goal results as outlined above and in extra persons on the field of play, it's restarted with a drop ball. So this is important. That can be a law that can be easily catch referees out if they don't continue to study the laws of the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can easily go, I'll rule out the goal. When somebody comes along and says, oh, by the way, he didn't interfere with play. It just happened to be in the same kit, and he was stood 1 meter or 2 meters in the field of play.
And that's the crux of the matter. Did he or did he not interfere with play, or did it interfere with play? Whatever it is, it could be a dog. It could be, as happened in Sunderland. Remember a few years ago? A beach ball was on the pitch and that sort of thing. Yeah, so it's all about interfering with play as to whether the goal is allowed or not allowed.
If after the other thing that is important here is we've now got a goal and the game has restarted. Different scenario.
Absolutely.
If after a goal is scored and play has restarted, the referee realizes an extra person was on the field of play when the goal was scored, the goal cannot be disallowed. If the extra person is still on the field, the referee must stop play, have the extra person removed, and restart the game with a drop ball or free kick as appropriate. The referee must report the incident to the appropriate authorities. So you see how these are aspects of the law. And look, I'm not cheating here. I'm actually reading the law because I have to tell you that I've been in discussion with that, and I just read that. So even I, and I'm involved with the laws most days, even I had forgotten that situation. So if the goal's in the back of the net and you restart the game, you cannot disallow the goal.
And that's important to referees out there and even spectators who are watching tonight. It's very important to keep up to date with the laws of the game. You can get them online on the IFAB.com, I think it is, and all the laws are there, and all the new changes are there, and all the new interpretations are there. So it's very important, if you're involved in football in any capacity, as a player, as a manager, as a coach, it's very important that you, particularly as managers and coaches, it's very important that you keep up to date so you can tell your players what is the law and what is not the law. Very important. Keith, there was an incident in the what they call and what's been known around the world as the Soweto Derby. It's a big game. It's like Rangers and Celtic. It's between Kaiser Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. Now, there was no score up until the final minutes when a Pirates player got into the penalty area. He was touched, if you like, not actually dragged back, but touched. His shoulder did seem to go back as if he had been pulled, but he continued with his momentum, had his shot, and the ball went wide. In the meantime, while he was having the shot, the goalkeeper came out and in a sliding tackle with both feet. And I was talking on SAFM South African radio tonight about it. Yeah. And lots of people were phoning in and asking. So I hope they're watching and they can hear it now. So many players are going down at the slightest touch, particularly if he's defending the ball and there's an opponent behind him, very close to him. He simply has to touch. Touch, and down he goes. Yeah. And I always know when they're cheating, when they know they're not going to get a free kick, because immediately when they go down, they grab the ball. So in other words, if they don't get the free kick, well, the others are not going to get a quick breakaway.
Yeah.
That happened this week. I thought from watching the clip, and I did send it to you earlier, that the penalty was against the goalkeeper and not the defender. Yeah. I sent you the clip. Were you able to watch it?
I was able to watch it. I think first of all, the important thing is I've actually attended a Kaiser Chiefs game. They played Manchester United, and the atmosphere is just electric. I generally thought I'd seen some big games across the world. This is one of the big games in the world of football. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
So let me first of all, I think, start by saying well done to the referee, because being in the right position at the right time is so important. There was a pull on the player inside the penalty area. I didn't think, in fairness, it was sufficient to warrant a penalty kick award, but the referee appeared to allow the play to go on. Now, there's a whole discussion, because this week Liverpool were awarded a penalty kick, and the debate around that was, I don't think many people could see whether there was contact or not. And I'm always one for discussing the laws, because football is a contact sport. This appeared to be an accidental contact, and therefore not a careless challenge for which a penalty kick can be awarded. But the argument that's been going on is contact was made. But that's not just the argument. Was it a foul? In this situation, before we went on air, you informed me that someone had phoned in and said the penalty was awarded against the player who did the pull. The pull was minimal. In English Premier League parlance, they might say it didn't impact sufficiently, but there's no doubt that the goalkeeper then wiped him out.
Yeah.
So we can argue which one. The referee had two to choose from, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I give great praise to the referee, because concentration on a big game can easily be lost. So he's maintained his concentration. He's refereeing for 90 minutes plus. He's still there. He's up with play. And the penalty kick was the right award. And that then, whatever happened afterwards, is immaterial. The referee got that decision right. Well done to him.
Yeah, and at this time of year, it's quite warm in South Africa, because they're the opposite to us. It's just at the end of their summer. So it was quite a hot day, and in a stadium like that where it's closed in, it's probably even hotter.
Yeah,
it could be. Yeah. On the pitch, where the thing is closed in with so many people, it could be up to 35 degrees, 40 degrees. So Exactly. Well done to him.
I mean, I thought genuinely that he'd awarded the penalty kick on the action of the goalkeeper and not the handling of the opponent.
Yeah.
I may be conditioned here because the reality is that in the English Premier League, we see grappling almost on a daily basis, going and holding and pulling, going unpunished. So in the English Premier League, right, good, bad, or indifferent, I don't think the player who held with the left hand would have been penalised. The goalkeeper would for certain.
Yeah. Keith, once again, we've run out of time. Thank you very, very much for your attendance. Next Monday,
thank
please, God, you out there for watching, and keep your comments coming in, and I'll do my best to get to them. Until next Monday, 8 o'clock at the same time, same place. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.